Yeah, then I would say let's get it started. And yeah, I would say a warm welcome to everyone who joined today, who made the time to learn more about sustainable packaging. This is the third edition of our Sustainable Transformers talk. And as they say, all good things are three. I think this is a special talk. I probably say this for every talk, but I really mean it. And I think the topic of packaging is probably one that is important for everyone, since I guess no one can avoid packaging in their life. And I guess we also have some of you here joining us who probably also deal with packaging on a more professional level. But again, since everyone is basically a consumer, I think this topic is super, super relevant. And yeah, also a big warm welcome to both of you, Adrian and Kati, who are joining today as our experts. I'm super excited to have the opinion of Bayersdorf and the startup perspective from Everdrop, and of course your personal experience and learnings along the way. And so I always love to get to talk to very inspiring people here. And yeah, before we kick it off, just a quick glimpse into what we're doing here at HYVE and why we're hosting this talk. We're an innovation agency based in Munich. We've been around since 22 years already, and we are a very interdisciplinary team. So we have researchers, we have industrial designers, we have software developers, so really a broad team to help companies come up with ideas and concepts, and then to prototype them, test them, and to make them ready for market launch. So basically, we help companies along the whole innovation process. And we also, of course, want to make sure that the products and services that companies are developing are future-proof and future-ready. And therefore, sustainability is a very important component in that area. And we do not only want to focus on consumer centricity, so really focusing on what users want, but also focusing on the planet and its needs. And also we think ourselves as enablers, and we love the open innovation mindset. And this is why we like to discuss with experts. We love to connect people. And this is why we're hosting these formats, really to bring together inspiring minds and provide food for thought. And this is why we're very happy you joined, and we get to learn today. This format, as I said already, will discuss all things sustainable packaging, and we will start with Adrian, who is a packaging expert responsible for all things around sustainable packaging and formulas at Bayersdorf. So we're excited for this very expertise in this area, and then we'll move over to Kati to the startup expertise, since Everdrop is probably this startup who has sustainable packaging in their founding DNA. And since you are a sustainability manager there, we'll also get a broader view on what it means to really make sure that Everdrop remains a leader when it comes to sustainability, also on a broader scale. So I think we have a lot of interesting aspects here that we can discuss today. And then, of course, in the end, we'll open it up. So also for you who are joining us in the audience, we love to hear from you. Right now, you're muted. This is solely because of background noise, because right now we're already 75 people joining us, which is awesome. But this is why you're on mute now. But of course, we would like to hear your opinions. So in case you have questions towards the speakers, feel free to post them into the chat, and just make sure that you will send it to everyone. You can select in the chat to whom you want to send them. I think when you send it to everyone, the whole audience gets a feeling for the different type of questions. So we would really like to encourage you to post that in the chat. If you want to be more visible in the discussion, that's also possible. You can raise your hand, and then we can kind of invite you up to the video setting here. So that's also an option. If you want to talk more personally, we can, of course, also do that. So this would be, the introduction from my side. So I would like to hand over now to our amazing experts. And for this talk format, I always love to challenge the guests a little bit to bring one physical item with which they can introduce themselves. So I have not seen them yet. So I'm actually also quite curious to see what you brought and how you're introducing yourself. And since you're also starting with your talk, I would say let's start with you, Adrian, and then yeah, you can introduce yourself, Kati, afterwards.
Sure. Okay, hello, first of all, from my side. My name is Adrian Schibill, like Rebecca said, so I'm a packaging expert with Beiersdorf almost 10 years now. Yes, and I will maybe start with the object that I brought, and I hope you can see it. It's actually a sealed Lego box of Lego plant pieces, which is also made from plant-based material, so plant-based plastic. And I chose this specific object because, yeah, there are several reasons that I think that it makes very suitable for me. So Lego is something that has, been part of my life since a very long time. So since I'm a very small child, I was always playing with Legos. I think there's a lot of creativity and somewhat engineering going into it when you play with it. And maybe I believe that's also one of the reasons why I'm where I am today as a packaging engineer. Also, I mean, I talked about the sustainability. These are plastic made from plants. But there's also one other fun fact, because if you maybe have not known this, Lego comes from Denmark, and the same applies for me because I was born in Denmark. So that's the last fun fact about why I brought this object and why I find it suits quite well. Yeah, so like I said, I'm a packaging engineer. I studied packaging technology in my bachelor's and master's, and I'm now with Beiersdorf almost 10 years. And since 2 years, I'm part of a very new team that is called Packaging and Formula Science. And like Rebecca also already teased a bit, we are taking a deep look at how recycled plastics especially interact with our sustainable formulas. Yeah.
Super cool. And I think, the aspect of play is super important when it comes to innovation and finding new solutions. So I love the item you brought. Thanks so much for this great introduction.
Great, then I'll continue. So I'm Katharina Kamm. I'm Sustainability Manager at Everdrop, and I today did bring an Everdrop bottle because obviously not only does it reflect my work, but it also reflects how I got into sustainability. Because what really sparked my interest for this topic was actually sustainable consumer goods. And a couple of years ago, I got really interested in how can I make my lifestyle more sustainable. And I was mainly looking for new ways of consumerism and new innovative products. So it's pretty great that now I am a sustainability manager at such a company. And what else did I do to get there? I studied in my bachelor, I studied sociology, politics, and economics, when I figured out these three won't exist in the future without the perspective of sustainability. So I began to focus on that a lot more. And then I did my master's in humanitarian engineering with a focus on sustainability. And now I'm with Everdrop for about 1.5 years.
Yeah, also amazing to know. I mean, I've known you for a bit, and I really know that sustainability is something that also you live in your day-to-day. So I'm also very happy you joined us today. And I would say before we are moving into your talks, I think I'm pretty curious to see what the audience said about our quick little poll. I'll just refresh this and then I'll share my screen in a second. Here we go. So now you should also be able to see the results, right? Perfect. So for the first question, we asked you, what is the better choice? And I see here, most of you think the reusable bags are the best bags. There are some who also agree with the economists, it depends. Paper bag and then plastic bag is the least ranked here. For a question, when packaging is recyclable, then it's sustainable. We see no one who fully agrees with that. And most is around number 3, which was kind of like moving rather towards the agreements, but also not fully agreeing. So that's very interesting. And we have also quite some who don't really agree with that. When we asked you if you associate any negative effects with sustainable packaging, it's pretty, stability is the first one that you wonder in terms of negative effects. Then there's quite a lot of you who say, well, nope, there are no disadvantages. And we can also see performance, functions, looks, a little bit of smell, and recoverability and accessibility or easiness. So I think that's quite interesting to see what you've chosen here. And I'm curious to see maybe how also Adrian can maybe also refer to that a little bit. Then have you ever consciously noticed the topic of sustainability in a cosmetic product? 86.4% of you say yes, so that's quite a lot. Some of you aren't sure, and yeah, a little fraction says nope, never. And then for the last question, we ask you if a cucumber should be wrapped in plastic or not. Here, most of you say, no, that's a waste of plastic. And some of you say yes, because then it's fresh for a longer time. So yeah, thank you for answering this poll. I think this already gives us quite an idea that it's maybe not always as straightforward when it comes to packaging. And I prepared a little thing, especially since I feel like the topic of bags is discussed a lot. I just wanted to show something before I then really hand over to our real experts here. But I think, yeah, we nowadays only see paper bags in supermarkets. And I think one story that is very important, it's not only, yeah, the material, but also the frequency of consumption that really makes a difference. Because when we look at the energy consumption, the CO2 emissions associated with the different materials, and also the water consumption, we can see that paper bags also use quite a lot of water, and especially if it's only used one time, that this is not so great. And we can also see here how much recycled content actually helps, especially for also reusable bags in terms of materials. So I think that's just, when I saw this graphic for the first time, I was actually, well, the story around no plastic bag is sometimes maybe a little bit too single-sided, and we really need to look maybe at a bigger picture. And I think the same is the question around the cucumber dilemma, where I'm personally also more on the side of, no, I don't really want to see packaging. But then I saw that the lifetime of a cucumber can actually be prolonged from 9 days to 15 days with packaging. And so a lot of food waste can potentially be eliminated. So I think there's a lot of questions sometimes around packaging. And that's why I'm so curious to hear from both of you, since sometimes I think this topic has more aspects than we might think in the first place. And with that, I'll hand over to you, Adrian. I'm very curious to learn from your learnings and what you see as, yeah, what you've done and your challenges and opportunities that you feel in the space of sustainable packaging. So the stage is yours, and I will stop sharing and hand over to you.
Okay, give me 1 second. I think I have to choose the right. Right screen. You should be able to see it, right?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Yes, perfect. Now, I want to start off by maybe just giving a very big refresh about what we are talking about when we talk about BioStuff. This is not going to be a very deep company presentation, but rather than going to my experience that I had made. So just a quick refresh of which brands we actually talk about when we talk about BioStuff. And now going on further into the presentation, I of course want to highlight that I'm mainly focusing from my perspective on the skincare part. So I want to exclude Tesa here, but here are a lot of brands within the BioStuff group that maybe not everybody has top of mind when they think about BioStuff. But Nivea and Eucerin are definitely the two big ones. And I want to start off with the topic of sustainability. And we as BioStuff, we have made an ambitious commitment for ourselves where we say, okay, we set ourselves a target for 2025 mostly where we want to achieve certain specific sustainability targets. And top most is the reduction by 30% of our CO2 emissions. So this is also especially in scope 1, 2, and 3. And I think that's the top target that we set ourselves. Of course, we also look into the fact that we want to have a climate neutral production sites where we produce our products. And next to this, these 2 points, we have 3 specific ones which impact my work directly, and I want to highlight those here. So those 3 commitments that we have put to ourselves are also known as the plastic pledge for us, and they are mainly impacting the sustainability of our products. So one being, so the one here on top left, that we want to reduce the use of fossil-based virgin by 50%. So I think that's a big step that we want to set for ourselves. And this can be partially done by reducing, of course, the overall amount of the virgin plastic that we use, or that's the second point, that we want to integrate across the entire portfolio 30% recycled materials, and especially plastics are in this case the specific ones. So this also until 2025. So very ambitious goal, and this is mainly the part of the pledge that is impacting my work in the most ways. And last but not least, of course, we talked about recyclability, and you also brought the case of the bags, Rebecca. So we also want to have all of our packaging 100% either refillable, reusable, or recyclable by 2025. So very ambitious goals that we set ourselves. And yeah, this is just as a starting point for everybody to understand my work and why I'm doing this. And yeah, so in the next 3 charts, I want to say I have 3 big topics linked to this recycled material pledge that I just showed you. And they are divided into 3 main topics. And around those 3 topics, I have a lot of, I have some small bullet points just to talk about those. And for sure, the biggest topic is this recycled plastic. And when we think about recycled plastic, the current work that we're doing has changed significantly to how it was before. Because with virgin plastic, usually there is a food approval or safety approval linked to those. So those are fairly safe to use, or they are safe to use. And with recycled materials, usually there are no approvals or safety approvals linked to those, and in rare cases they have food approval, but we are very interested in the recycled materials that we can use for our products, and they mainly don't have approval. So the topic of safety is a major point when it comes to integrating this recycled plastic into our packagings. And also something that has changed for us significantly is that the sourcing of virgin, to put it plainly, there were a couple of petrochemistry companies that were offering mainly the same grade, so they were readily available. And this has now changed because we talk about recycled materials, so it's very locally sourced. There are a lot of different recyclers that offer recycled grades. And so the sourcing scenario has changed significantly. And also linked to this, the costs are definitely some point that also has changed for us. And I think it's also clear, we have seen it also in some of the results, that the stability was one of the feedback that we have gotten for the cosmetic products. Mechanical properties is one of the next steps where we see, okay, this is something where we have a few challenges, because recycled material per se is losing some of its rigidity, and is not as stable or performing on the same level as we are used to it from virgin material. The last point that I mentioned here is compatibility, and that's where my work is mainly focusing on, because all of the points that I've mentioned on top have just considered the material. And when I talk about my work, it's basically this material in combination with our formulation. So the compatibility between those new materials and our formulations is where I then mainly dig into. And compatibility is also one of the overarching topics for the next slide, because color is one of the topics that is also linked to these recycled materials. So maybe you know it, or it's something that is new to you, but the materials are always color sorted. So virgin material is usually colorless, and now when we talk about recycled materials, they always bring already a color with them in the majority of the times. So this is a new aspect that we have to work with, and our well-known product, in this case, the lovely shower bottle that you see in the center, it has a product color, and for sure we want to make it again attractive, so that the consumer first of all finds it and finds what he's used to. So material color is also one of the aspects that changes now with recycled material. So overall, the color is something that the consumer, I think, also strongly links when we talk about recycled materials. And I have a very interesting example that I always like to make is that consumers very well got used to the look and feel of recycled paper, and the same goes for recycled glass. And I'm hoping for going into the future that the optic and the feel of recycled plastic is something that gets on the same level as recycled paper and recycled glass does, because I don't think it's a bad material. It just has to be used in the right places, in the right amount. And then maybe in the future, something that looks recycled also is a benefit, because it gives the consumer the feeling that he's really doing something good. So this is an example that I just want to make here, that this color and this look and feel of recycled materials, I think, a very important one that we can work on much more. With this being said, on the next slide, I have a bit of an excursion, because I want to highlight again this product in the center, because in my former position at BioSoft, I was deeply involved in the packaging, in the development of this new shape for our shower gel bottles. And in the new position, I was deeply involved in the compatibility testing of this product. So this product, or this packaging, is very close to my heart, if you want to say so. And this is a very specific package that I want to highlight here. As you can see, we claim here that the bottle is made out of 98% post-consumer recycled HDPE, and the cap is right now 30% post-consumer recycled PP. So here also, regarding the topic of claiming, we don't state 100%, because we need to consider that there's a color that we add. So the master badge that we add, we don't consider it for the claim of recycled. So it's not 100% what everybody, of course, is looking for. But what I want to say about this product is that usually, or what we see in the industry, that for PCR materials, usually the white and natural materials are the ones which are more favorable to everyone, because again, you can color them very good, and also the level of contaminations is a bit lower compared to the darker colors. But this specific bottle was actually designed with the blue PCR. So we have actually used blue sorted PCR material in this bottle. So in cooperation with the company Morsinghoff. So already here, we chose a specific stream, and in the end, you can say, okay, if this bottle is being recycled, then it again lands in this blue recycling stream, and that, I think, is how it should be. That we have basically somewhat of a closed circle. That's why I wanted to highlight this specific product as a small excursion. Getting back to the topic, so finally, basically my third and in the end also most important topic that I want to talk about when we talk about recycled plastic is the topic of odor, and odor performance specifically. So as you can imagine, we are talking about waste in the end. So the source of our material, the recycled material, is the waste. So you and my waste that we throw into the trash at home. And we are basically using this material again into our bottles. And unfortunately, we see that a lot of those materials have odor that is linked to them that is not very pleasant. So my job is to figure out which of the materials perform the best with our fragrances, because on a side note, also our formulations are changing and getting more sustainable. But so this also means that our fragrances are getting more sustainable. We need to see how this performance is, happening, and if the consumer liking is impacted by this. So we want to guarantee that there's the least effect on our product coming from this odor perspective. So consumer liking is here very, very important for us, and that's why we also do a lot of testing around this topic. My last point here is the topic of safety versus odor, because what I've realized is in the very few cases where PCR materials or recycled materials have a food approval, that there's always the automatic consumption that then they have also no odor, and that they are also performing on a stability, also on a mechanical property level, very good. And we have seen that this is actually not the case. So the safety topic and the odor topics are not necessarily topics that can be linked to each other. So just a phenomenon that I've realized, and I wanted to comment it also here. So I only showed you one example in the center to build up all these three topics, but I also wanted to bring some more examples, of course, from our portfolio. You can see here from the Nivea range, a couple of other products where we have integrated recycled materials, not just in the bottles, but also in the caps. You can also see one specific product here on the second on the right with recycled aluminium or secondary aluminium. So this is something that we are very proud of, that we can contribute, to our plastic pledge, so that we start to have more and more of those recycled materials in our products. And this brings me to my last slide, or it's rather a picture, and this is more or less a shocker, and that's also intended to be like this. So this is actually a picture that I took while visiting a recycling plant. So, and I strongly believe that independent, if you are working at a small company or a big company, at a startup, if you're working with recycled materials, I can just encourage you to take the chance to visit such places, because the smell is something that I think you need to experience and that you need to realize when we talk about something like recycled material. And yeah, I think it's important to get this feeling. So in the end, it's important for me to also transport the message that we're talking about waste that we're using here. And on that sense, I think that a lot can still happen when we think about what happens after we throw our products into the trash. Are our products made ideally so that they can be recycled in the perfect way, so that those materials that come out of this waste that we then have generated are perfect again to be reused in our lovely packagings that we want to bring to the market. So hopefully you have the chance to maybe visit some recyclers, also listen to them, figure out what their issues are, because yeah, I think it's a great chance to make recycled materials or recycled plastics great. And that's actually the last slide. So thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much for this great input. I think that would be, maybe a new team bonding experience, going to a recycler together, just to throw out some ideas. Yeah, I think that's a great point, and so much knowledge that you shared with us. I'm just checking in the chat if there's questions right away. I think there's one. Before then we maybe move on to Kati, and then again we're opening it up for a bigger discussion. So, but if anyone has questions, feel free to already post in the chat. However, there was one which asked, hi, are these goals global or just for Europe? If they are for Europe, do you think that it is possible to do the same in South America in a short period of time?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think I maybe mentioned it. I didn't mention it. So these are for the entire group. So these are globally. So all of those targets we set ourselves on our global portfolio. Yes.
And is your team also working globally, or are you having a certain focus within your team?
So yes, my team, we're focusing also so we're focusing on the global aspect. So we also get in touch with the recycling materials that we receive from the regions. So yes, we are also focusing on the regions, and mainly also the projects are done on a global scale. So yes, we are also included in those.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so yeah, then I think thank you to you, Adrian. And I think, there'll be plenty of more questions, I think, coming up. At least I have quite some that I noted down. But I think, we'll keep this for the bigger discussion later. I will, I think now hand over to you, Kati, to hear, from your perspective. And I think it's, also quite interesting to hear from the more startup perspective. I think you need to unmute yourself. Yeah.
So can you hear me now and see my slides? Perfect. Great. Okay, so you might know it or not, but every year we produce 407 million tons of plastic worldwide. And especially in our industry, which is cleaning and household products, there's a huge lack of awareness for the plastic that we put out there. So Chris and David, which you can see in this picture, our founders, they founded Everdrop about 3 years ago with their mission to deplastify our households. How did they do it? They started with this very simple concept. of a refill tap. So you take a bottle like the one that I showed before, you fill it with tap water at home, and then you put in a little tap like this one, and it dissolves in the water, and there is your cleaning spray. It has a very nice side effect that we also try to make more aesthetic products to actually reach the mass market and make them opt for more sustainable options, because you know that traditional cleaning products are usually not very pretty. Now we have about 40 household and personal care products. We're not only with the cleaning spray anymore. We have a range of washing powders, dishwasher tabs. We've made powders that turn into gel for toilet cleaning. We have personal care products like body wash or hand wash. But what all our products have in common is that they don't create plastic waste from single-use plastic. They don't contain any unnecessary chemicals. And with our concept, they can save up to 95% of CO2 emissions from transport. And kind of underlying concept that also made me really interested and curious to work at EverDrop, because I told you already, I'm really about innovative, sustainable lifestyle products, is that this concept follows the 3 R's of the waste hierarchy. The hierarchy says reduce first, then reuse, then recycle. So what we do is, the biggest step is to reduce waste. So with our product, instead of buying a cleaning spray, which also means every time buying a single-use plastic bottle, you only buy a little paper sachet that contains a tap, which is a massive reduction of waste. Then second principle is reuse, what you can't reduce. So we need a bottle, so we created a reuse bottle. And the last step is recycling. We also make sure, while our product is actually made for reuse for several years at least, we make sure that it's also recyclable at the end, and we try to put in as much recycled content as possible. So this bottle that I just showed, for example, is the body is made from 100% recycled PET. Let's just take a step back. So why is this refill concept so important, and why is it over the recycling step in the hierarchy? Because I think for many people, circular economy is all about making a bottle that is 100% recycled material, then putting it into the waste, and it's recycled again and turned into a new bottle, preferably. That is a closed loop, and that is already a great step for sustainability. But the whole process needs a lot of resources and emits a lot of emissions, because you need to transport the waste, sort it, clean it, shred it, mold it, heat it, transport it again to make a new bottle. And all this takes resources of the planet that we want to save. So having a reuse product that is only recycled after several years of use saves a lot of emissions and resources in its lifetime. And that's what we're doing with our products. Rebecca asked me to also give you some insights on the sustainability department and what we're doing. So I'm just showing you a project that we recently initiated this year, and it's plastic offsetting, because we want to reduce all the plastic there is as much as possible, but we still are selling plastic, and we want to take responsibility for that. So we partnered with CleanHub, and CleanHub is offsetting our plastic footprint, meaning that they collect the same amount of plastic that we sell in a year at parts of the world where there's no waste management system. So there, the plastic waste would just go into nature or be burned openly, which is both really bad for the environment. Giving you some more insights on what sustainability management at EverDrop means, here's just 2 challenges that we're currently facing. So one is sustainability data. There is a lot of concepts that provide us with insights on sustainability data, like the company carbon footprint, product carbon footprints, or life cycle assessments. And those would enable us to see what a product generates in emissions or in resources over its whole lifetime period. And it would really help us to know it, to A, compare it to other products, and B, improve the product itself. But it's really, really hard because there's not a lot of data availability, especially when it comes to chemical ingredients. You can't just look up the carbon footprint of a chemical ingredient usually, or for many you can't. So we're working really hard on getting that data, but it costs a lot of time, resources, money, and definitely patience to get there. And another challenge that we recently faced, more on the packaging side, is our sachets. So we had this really great paper that was coated with like a harvesting waste, like a coating made from harvesting waste, and it worked perfectly for our cleaning tubs and protected them super well. But when we started to make powder products, we realized that the packaging doesn't work as well. So here's an example. It got really like humid and sticky, and like it should be a powder and not look like this. So we had to change the paper actually to a version that is a little bit less sustainable maybe than the one we had before, but we also need to make sure that there's a certain product quality. That kind of goes back to the cucumber example that we had in the beginning. And yeah, happy to tell you more about how we solved that problem in the discussion now. So thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to discuss with you how to make the world a little bit cleaner.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much for giving us also some glimpses into what you do at EverDrop and into the vision behind. As Katja already said, I think now is a very good time to open up the discussion, and we of course would love to hear from everyone who's joining us today. I already saw some questions. I think there were also for you, Adrian. I will start with the one from Kimberly. What insights do you have on recycling plastics at the MRFs?
So in general, you have to say that recycled PET material has, or PET in general, the material itself has very different material aspects compared to polyolefins, so recycled HDP and recycled PP. So it behaves very different. There are also a lot of recycled PET materials available which have a food approval. So generally, I don't see them as critical. Also in the aspect of odor, especially when you compare them to virgin materials, they behave on a very similar level. So I think the only issue that you have with recycled PET is the color topic. So because similar to the recycled paper example and recycled glass example that I brought, the recycled PET tends to get a bit darker or grayish, so it doesn't have these vibrant colors anymore. So I don't see it as critical as the other polyolefin materials.
Mm-hmm. And some more questions here. There's one who asked, I see that many companies are not using colorful or black plastic since it is difficult, if not impossible, to reuse. How do you see it at Beiersdorf?
Yes, it's true. So like I said in my example, the most favorable ones are the natural colored or the colorless and the white ones. I think there's a difficult topic that is surrounding discolorization of those materials, because if you think about that, we always add color to the stream. I think it's easy to understand that then the overall stream would be getting always darker, darker, darker. I think that is one of the main arguments why also a lot of companies maybe try to avoid colorizing their packagings very dark. An additional topic is that in the past there were master batches, so black master batches, which were based on carbon, which can then not be detected in the recycling process, and then would not be recycled properly. So the question of colorizing those materials is quite difficult. I mean, in the end, if you think about the glass example, the best would be to really color separate everything so that it stays in its own stream. It's a bit hard to think how this would work for plastic. Ideally, it would work for plastic. I mean, I brought the example where we used especially blue colored material in our product. Ideally, it's exactly the same color. So there's some aspects surrounding this topic of darker colors and the stream getting always darker and darker. And of course, all the brand users want to have a crispy, nice looking, fresh product. And that's why I mentioned this look of recycled. Maybe we can get used to it as consumers.
Mm-hmm. And then there's one more question. I think there's been a lot for you, because I guess people had some more time to already digest that. How can I properly dispose recycled plastic? Are there instructions on the packaging?
Yeah.
Great question.
Okay, it's a big topic that's I actually also I didn't touch on, but I think I mean mainly the topic that I was touching on was mechanical recycling. Of course, there are more advanced recycling options that are looked into, which are not in place yet. But I see that there are huge difficulties between the countries. There are very different types of how they manage their waste. And so globally speaking, it's difficult to answer this question because there are very different recycling types and separation facilities, or maybe it's even done by humans around the globe, so that you would always need to consider how your local waste management is set up. Usually, yes, recycled polymers should end up in the plastic stream where they belong, hopefully with the right material. And if you can ensure this is the best case how you can dispose of those recycled materials again.
So maybe, just to follow up on this topic, and that would be a question to both of you. How much education do you think is still needed for consumers, and what role do you think companies should play in this? I think that would be interesting to hear from both of you.
Should I go first? Okay. So yes, next to the recycling topic, I would say that I just touched on, this consumer behavior is the second biggest topic. I think is having an impact. I think it's we as brand owners are having a role in the responsibility to create this awareness and to educate our consumers how they should properly dispose of or which is the best way how they can dispose of it. So separating materials and putting it first of all in the right stream. So it's a big part that we also play a role in. I think also the first topic that I mentioned with the recyclers, that's a link to it, because if we explain them for a specific region how it's done, hopefully then also in this region it's generally set up in the way that how we meant it for them to be separated. So there's a lot of mix in technologies when it comes to recycling. So it's hard to give a very generic answer that is a one-fits-all solution. And that's unfortunately currently not the case. So hopefully we are doing our best in educating them in the right way, that it's fitting for the market where we are communicating it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a bit easier for us because we are only in like the German-speaking market, and then France and Italy, and we have our website, so it's easier to us to communicate with like specific groups of customers. So we do have actually like on our paper packagings, we have printed where you should put the paper, so it's paper waste in that case, but sometimes people aren't sure if there's like any plastic coating. And then also we put that on our FAQs, like where to put every single of our products once it has reached their end of life. So, and we hope people go there and read it. But obviously, like those products, like the bottles, they are not really made for throwing them away soon. So it's only in the FAQs, but for single-use packaging, it's on the packaging.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I see there is another question for the both of you. What kinds of labeling make packaging easier to recycle again? Stickers, print. What is your take on that?
Sure, I can maybe answer to this. So it's not an easy question because there are a lot of factors that play into this. So it always depends on what is the label made of and where is the label on. So both materials play a role. I think one issue that we also still have are the inks. So inks, it's also, from my perspective, a big black box, so to say, because there are a lot of different pigments in there, and they can affect the recycling stream positively or negatively, mostly negatively. So ideally, I mean, in the ideal world, there would not be inks on our labels, or we wouldn't have labels at all. So there are several questions around that to answer it perfectly. So usually, if the label material is the same material as the bottle, then it would end up in the exact same stream, packaging stream or recycling stream. This would be the ideal case. In the end, nevertheless, the label needs to be separated from the bottle material, and then is the question: can you really recycle those label materials, or can you not? So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is there? I know it just from the book industry that there's a lot of movements, for instance, like soy-based ink or more natural-based inks. Is that something you're also looking into, kind of the future of ink or more natural inks, or how is that?
So yeah, definitely all of the developments are going into this directions. Of course, we need to also rely on our suppliers that they are proceeding with their developments. And the ink industry is a very big industry, and we alone maybe don't have that big of a leverage. But for sure, it's very interesting to look into those scenarios. Also, we need to consider that the inks right now are not making a huge part out of the overall packaging weight, and the mostly the washing systems, as far as I know, are also very efficient in removing the inks. So, of course, all those approaches are very interesting to achieve a more recyclable label also in the end with the inks. Yeah.
Is that also a discussion that you have at Everdrop, or what's kind of your take?
Well, yeah, for us, it's like our bottles are reusable. So if you would put on a label sticker, it would wash away with time, because we also recommend to clean our bottles like in the dishwasher every now and then for hygienic reasons. So we actually have something like really printed on them. And yeah, we did discuss like what kind of inks to use for the printing. It can be water-based, it can be petrochemical based, but what is really important and what we did make sure is that it washes off quite easily in the recycling process. So when the plastic comes to the recycling facility, it will be sorted and then washed, and this printing would wash away, and you can make that sure. And I think that's a great step, and then printing is fine as well.
Okay. Yeah, and I see there's another question for both of you. What is your experience on differentiation of consumer recognition, awareness in terms of sustainable packaging? And here, especially recyclability and PCR across Europe.
Maybe Kati, you want to go first this time?
The awareness of consumers regarding sustainable packaging. I think it's really very hard because everyone has their own kind of ideas what would be like the most sustainable solution, and it's really hard to generalize. We saw that with the example from the bags, like plastic bag versus paper bag, etc. in the beginning, and everyone has their own idea. So, for example, there are some things that consumers also might not understand, like for the why are the bottles not made of 100% recycled materials? Yeah, Adrian, you get that question too, probably. But for example, you just said it, like the coloring needs some like virgin material sometimes, or here we have that spray caps, which need a lot of stability to work for especially several years in our case, and you couldn't like make a stable one with recycled materials, so we need virgin materials for these. So that is a lot of aspects that I think consumers don't know. And then there are some companies that advertise with like 100% recycled everything, and then we don't do it because we want to be honest and transparent and educating, and that can be a disadvantage at times, which I find a really interesting conflict, and I hope that we can educate consumers on this.
Yeah, I have to totally agree. I see a very similar picture. So I think the awareness of recyclability and PCR, it's very, yeah, I think the buzzword is also greenwashing. So I think that the consumers are confused or maybe don't understand. There are a lot of technical details that lay behind why something is like this. And to explain this on a small cap sticker, I think is very difficult, or to transport it on the product itself. So that's very difficult. I think, yes, you can then put it online. Then is the question, do they look at this? So the confusion is I think, yeah, quite large in how to recycle something, and or what is PCR, how does it function, why are the claims like this, why are 100% claimed on this and 89 or something like on this. So and I think one crucial issue in my opinion is I mentioned recycled paper, and I think these materials have certain material codes, how I like to call them. So mixing up material codes, like for an example, to make a plastic tube look like it's paper, or making it look like it is made from paper, I think this is adding more to the confusion of consumers, because now we are mixing two material codes with each other, and then the confusion is even greater. So and mixing also paper into plastic, and saying, okay, we have less plastic use. I find it difficult because it's adding on top of the confusion that maybe is already there. And I think we have a big role as a brand to do the education here and try to be as honest with our claims as possible and do the educational part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. I was just wondering, I mean, since you already mentioned that, producing products that maybe look like paper, I mean, is there, and I think that's a question for both of you, trends into the direction beyond plastic? Like, what do you see on the market, since there's, I know, a lot of algae-based, even sachets or things like that? How do you see that? Or when do you think that would be possible even to think beyond plastic, or do you think that's not possible at all? What would be your take on that?
So I go again. I think there's a great future in the topic of looking for material alternatives. My personal feeling is right now that we have this plastic issue right now, that we need to figure out and focus on this topic right now, because it's somewhat getting out of hand. And that's why we want to get the best recycled material that there is, that we can then use it again. There are more advanced recycling technologies that hopefully in the near future are also in place, so that it gets even better. But beyond this, I think then it's the best case to look into alternative sources. So not crude oil, like my Lego example, so something that is plant-based. This is also a bit critical, because of course there you also have to be careful with certain arguments. There are a lot of interesting material options that are plant-based. Usually the majority of those have other difficulties is it in properties of stability, or maybe also smell in another direction. I have the feeling that we are not there yet, but I hope that we get there, that we find alternatives. But I think we need to figure out the plastic issue right now as a first step, and then we need to look into the future already to figure out what is the next step for us as a material option.
And just out of curiosity, would there be one kind of company or material that you find especially interesting, like personally, where you feel that this could be something?
To think about this. So I mean, I talked a lot about plastic, and then every plastic that has a plant-based source, I find it super interesting. So basically, to answer your question, every plastic that is plant-based, I love those materials, and I think they're a great step into the future. But with the plants, then we need to be careful that we are not getting into a conflict with any food versus fuel discussion, and that we are really taking care that this is not a next topic that we then create with this material. So I don't have the one specific material for you, but in general, if it's a plant-based material, maybe in a combination with being biocompostable at the end, this could be maybe an ideal material I can think of.
Yeah, I already saw you nodding, Kati. Like, what's your take on that?
No, yeah, I absolutely agree that it can create a lot of conflict. That's why I especially like plant-based plastic solutions that come from like plant surplus or waste even. Like for example, the coating we use for our papers is like made from plant-based waste that would go into waste anyways, and it doesn't create any conflict with like food production or just land use. So I feel like those are really promising, those materials. But also, as Adrian said, they also need to be either compostable or recyclable, because otherwise they might be sometimes even worse than crude oil plastics.
Okay, yeah, and I saw there's another question. I think that's for you, Kati. Are you thinking about selling parts of the packaging? For example, if my trigger's broke, can I just exchange it, not the whole product?
That is super important. Also, not making a whole bottle go to waste when there's only an exchangeable part broken, and we do offer that. Frankly, you can just write to our support team, and they will send you a new cap. They will. I don't know for the bottles, I don't think so, but like for the cap, if they break, you will get a new one, because also it's the weaker part of the bottle. Like the body will just stay as it is for a long time, but the trigger might break more easily or not work as long as the bottle.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm just looking at the time that we're approaching. This 1 hour always goes by so fast. So what I always love to do in the end is, I mean, since there's a lot of information that you gave us, if there was, one sentence or maybe 2 or 3, because sometimes one sentence is a little tough, that you would want to take our audience, to really take away from this, what would it be that you think, this is something that's really close to your heart, that someone should go out of this talk keeping at least this in mind?
Ladies first.
If you already have something, then go for it.
Okay. So I want to refer maybe to my last picture again. So I think for me, the best is take the chance to visit maybe a recycler, realize, experience it. Either if you're marketing, if you're a small brand, if you're a big brand, try to understand the entire stream. Try to understand what happens with your product afterwards. Make the best out of it. Be honest with your claims. Try to educate the consumer, and make recycling or recycled plastic great.
Great ending.
I've also visited a recycling plant, and it's really great. So highly recommend it. What I would like to say, what is really like my on my heart, is always that we need to look at the whole life cycle of each product and packaging. So where do the raw materials come from? Which emissions are released in production? And how is the end of life? Like, can it be recycled in a good way? And not just look at like one single step and see like, oh, it's biodegradable, so it must be great. No, look at the whole chain, and it might have like a much higher footprint at some other point, like the bags example that you showed us. So we should really learn to look at the whole life cycle of packagings as consumers, but also especially as companies, educate about it, and also demand it.
Yeah, good points. I think I really like the transparency. I think we can also see that. And I mean, the projects we do, a lot of the studies that we see, that I think it's best to be honest about what you're doing, also makes your work easier. And I guess the topic of sustainability is a big one, and there's a lot of aspects to see. And I think it makes sense to just get it started and learn as you go, knowing that there's probably always things you can improve. But I think that's also reframing it also into a positive note. There is a lot that can be done and that you can do, especially when you're honest on the way, letting your consumer knowing that you're doing something and that you're also figuring it out as you go. So yeah, thank you very much for these insights that you shared with us today. I learned a lot personally, and I really could feel that you're very passionate about the topic, and I really appreciated how you're pushing that forward in your respective jobs. And I'm curious to see what will be out in the market in the future. And with that, I yeah, I want to end with a big thank you, and already maybe as a little teaser for the next and last talk that we're having will be probably beginning of December, where we'll end it when it's all about sustainability as a mindset, since it's also a big mindset and transformational topic. And so kind of we thought it's good to do that at the end of the year, where a lot of people at least then start to reflect maybe on the year and already set up good motivations for the next one. So once there's more information, we're of course happy to share this. And with this, happy rest of your Thursday. We're happy you joined us today. And again, a special thanks to you, Kathi.